We welcome you into a conversation with West Virginia University Athletic Director Shane Lyons. It's brought to us by Encova Insurance, encircling you with coverage. Hi everybody, I'm Tony Caridi along with West Virginia's Athletic Director Shane Lyons, and we've got a lot to talk about. Firstly, how are you holding up here, huh?
It's been quite a run since March when we were together in Kansas City for the men's and women's basketball tournament, and hadn't slowed down since, Tony.
I know it hasn't. So for those that may or may not know, besides being the athletic director at WVU, just the way that it worked out, you were positioned to be the chairman of the NCAA's Football Oversight Committee, a role that you're holding right now. So as a result of, besides all of West Virginia and Big 12 details, you are also on top of the Football Oversight Committee. So I would imagine normal days now are 14, 16 hours?
They're long days.
Yeah.
On top of that is, I'm also on the NCAA Council, which obviously is meeting more now in addition to the football oversight, which ultimately the football oversight reports to the council. But we've scheduled weekly hour-and-a-half phone calls, plus I have prep calls, plus you're getting calls from around the country, just trying to make these models work and how's college football going to work come this September.
All right, so we've got a lot to get into, so let's jump right in. Schedule-wise, earlier this week, the Big 12 Conference announced that it would be 9+1, 9 league games plus 1 game. Now, let's walk us through, if you would, at this point. Changes of the Big 12 schedule. Is it realistic to think that the schedule we've been looking at for WVU as far as the league goes will be changed?
Yes, almost 100% that's going to happen. We've had discussions earlier this week about the schedule once the presidents came out with the 9+1 model. The +1 is a home game, to make that clear to our fans as well, that game, the +1, the non-conference has to be at home. And then the 9 conference games, what we're trying to do is, Tony, is build in as many bye weeks as possible. So really the schedule that you have right now is not going to work that way. And the anticipation is we're going to move the championship game from December 5th to December 12th, and maybe even to December 19th. And that will give us more flexibility as we go down the path. If there are games that are canceled or postponed, that we can play that on one of the bye weeks. So the schedule we have now will look completely different by the end of the week, which we anticipate to have that schedule later this week.
So conceivably, how many bye weeks could you get in the new schedule?
Depending on when the championship game is, we're looking at possibly 3 to get there, possibly even 4, depending how it looks. So that's the whole premise of the schedule, is to get as many bye weeks, understanding that different teams are going to have to play on different weekends. So what that means is what they're going to try to do from a scheduling standpoint is put teams into different pods. So if a game is postponed or canceled, that upcoming bye week, that game could be played because both teams would be available during that off week.
When's your hope to have the Big 12 schedule out?
We're hoping by the end of the day Friday.
Okay, end of the day Friday. In regard to your one non-conference game, right now it's Eastern Kentucky. You see that staying put at September 12th?
I do. We've had conversations, obviously that's been on our books for a number of years now, and we've had conversations with Eastern Kentucky, and that we'll stay with that as our opening game on September 12th.
All right, as we record this, fall sports championships are still in the air. The NCAA yesterday basically coming out and say, Division III, take care of you. Division II, the same. Division I, which you're obviously a part of. Where do you see fall sports sitting right now?
Well, I think it was good, actually, from the NCAA standpoint. Not getting in the weeds of this, but the president governance group was overseeing all 3 divisions, and we were afraid that the decision would be made for all 3 divisions in one full swoop. Now that it's done by divisions, I think that's good for us. It'll give us more time. We anticipate probably by the end of the month to be able to get understanding whether Division I, the fall championships, will remain and what that looks like. For our own sake, we've kind of put a hold as a conference on our fall sports not to start competition until after September 1st. Normally some of our soccers as well as volleyball and cross country, in some cases those sports were starting in August. With conferences canceling some of the travel and non-conference play, that gave us an opportunity to look at our schedule, which some games were removed because of cancellation. So we're looking at starting those sports after September 1.
If the verdict is that there won't be NCAA-sponsored fall sports championships, do you still play fall sports?
That it's still the question that's out there. You know, there's a lot of discussion about that's why I said I think it's good the NCAA took it by division as opposed to one full swoop, because this will now allow us to look at the number of teams that's still competing, you know, possibly for championships, and whether it's viable to have those championships come November, December. If they don't end up having championships, there is discussion about the Autonomy 5 leagues of having some sort of championship among the 65 schools of those at the end of the season, the regular season per se. So it's not for sure if the NCAA cancels what the next step would be, because there's other discussions out there happening, and it doesn't necessarily mean we would actually cancel the season as well.
Understood. Let's talk about opting out right now. Players are starting to say, hey, don't feel comfortable. Where do you stand in regard to opting out and eligibility if, in fact, a student athlete says, I don't want to participate this year?
Yeah, two great questions. One, I'm in favor from a student athlete, and we have said this for really over the past month to our student athletes and coaches, and I reiterated this morning to a full staff meeting that if student athletes don't feel comfortable competing this fall due to COVID-19, that we would continue to honor their scholarships. So I hope I've made that, you know, loud and clear. Even as a league, we're going to come out with a message just saying, as a league, that all 10 members feel the same, that the student athlete would retain their scholarship if he or she decided not to participate. The eligibility question, that's a good question, because that's really handled by the NCAA, and we don't have clear-cut information yet what that looks like. I think the student athletes are asking that question, and you know, we don't have the exact answers. I think it'll be very similar, Tony, to what happened in the spring sports, of saying if you opt out, that either it's a redshirt year, or there's a possibility at the end of, if your 5-year clock has expired, that your clock would be extended for an additional year as well from an eligibility standpoint. But that's information probably within by the end of the month at least, that information will be coming out.
Okay, let's talk dollars now. Financially, no NCAA basketball tournament. Season ticket sales obviously have been reduced as a result of what is going on. Where did you finish financially this fiscal year?
Basically where I thought we would finish, and it would projected out about right. We were a little over $5 million in the red this year based on the season tickets, different things, donations that were down. We did have a small reserve that can help that, but then looking into the fiscal year 20 budget, it's not looking very good.
How bad could it be?
Right now we're starting, and you're going to ask me this question here in a minute, but it's about fans and ticket sales, what that looks like, and we don't have, and I'll jump into that here in a second. No clear answers on that yet, but using the numbers that we have, starting out, and it's right now probably at least a $12 million in the whole red. Given what happened earlier this week, losing 2 additional football games is probably another, $5 or $6 million in the red. So you're looking right now at $18 million, and that's playing all 10 football games, playing all the basketball games, and making sure that we get through championships. So, and this is just not a WVU issue. You see this nationally. You read that Wisconsin, that they're projecting anywhere from a $75 to $100 million loss as a result of the pandemic. And our number could continue to climb. I don't want to be an alarmist, but that's where we're going to need help as a department, from the MAC office and donations from fans to keep this train moving forward, because it does cost us a lot from an operational expense to keep the department up and running.
You alluded to the fans, and you're exactly right. I was going to ask you about fans in the stands, and that is the biggest question now. So the schedule has been pared down. We do know that. What do you think, as we speak right now, is a realistic number of fans that could be in attendance, if in fact fans are going to be in?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. I don't think anybody has the answer to right now. You'd asked me a month ago. I was hoping probably be at 50%. And I think you saw that around the country. This is everything that every athletic director is asking, even in the professional sports, and we see them playing without fans. And what's our games going to look like? So we'll continue to work through that. Our ticket office and the MAC office has different plans in place. So it could be anywhere. I think what you're seeing now is it being cut down to probably 20 to 30%, and that would allow us to social distance in groups of 2, 4, 6 individuals and spread throughout the stadium. So that's some of the plans that we're working on. Depending what happens, there's a lot of people that make that decision. It's not only the athletic department, it's along with the university and local health and department, medical experts, it's state and local governments, even the governor will get involved in this. So hopefully in the coming days, within the next week or two, we'll have a better understanding of what that's going to look like.
That's what I was going to ask you. So when does that time come where you make a call? Firstly, and then secondly, the other question is, okay, if it's going to be such a limited number, then who are those that are going to be allowed in? How are you going to do that?
Well, that's where our MAC office comes in, and they have a system that they'll work through and identify those individuals. And hopefully, if we're at that 25 to 30% based on the number of season ticket sales and the students, that we have an opportunity to fulfill all the requests that we currently have. If it's lower than that, then obviously it's going to be based on priority, and our MAC office will work through that. The date, you're probably looking that we're approaching that very quickly. There's a lot of logistics that you have to get in place, and so you're probably looking at within the next week, probably a month out. With our first game being on September 12th, you're looking somewhere in August 12th to 15th to have that decision. Then there's decisions about concessions and entry and egress and the restrooms. So it's on and on the number of questions that we have to address and moving forward.
I'm correct, about 18,000 plus season tickets have been sold?
About that number, you're right.
What'd you think of that, considering everything that's going on? It sounds pretty good.
It's not, it's not good. I mean, it's not bad. It's, it was pretty good. Obviously we've been up in the 25,000 range on a normal year. By no means this is not a normal year. So to have, Mountaineer Nation come and support us that way, that's very important. And, we're excited for football season. There's just a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainty. But we've worked hard each and every day. There's not anything you can look at a crystal ball and say it's going to look this way on September 5th, September 12th, and you just take it day by day.
We had a pop in positive tests in early July, and then that number has plummeted since. Why do you think the number has gone down? What's the take from the medical folks in dealing with you as to, okay, this is why?
Well, why is that, I think people are aware that, this virus is real, and student athletes aren't immune to it. So I think that you had the 4th of the July holiday, you had some, activities going on here in Morgantown that our student athletes partook in, and that all of a sudden, looking back from contact tracing, identified those that we had, an uptick in the number of positive tests. And that's not within our athletes, it was within our state. The reason it's going back the other way, we've pushed the wearing of the mask, we've worked, the social distancing, everything that we've asked, people are doing. And it's interesting, you see pictures of our football team and lifting weights and running, they're running with the mask. And that's not the most comfortable thing. It's not comfortable just wearing it normally, but let alone running sprints, lifting weights, doing those type of things. But our athletes have taken this very serious, and I think that's where we've seen a decline. As of this week, it's my understanding that we're back having everybody. We're going through some additional testing, but every student athlete from a contact tracing or positive is eligible to be back.
Your son plays Division I football, so obviously you've got a focus and an understanding of this, perhaps even more so. What leads you, or what makes you comfortable as far as what you guys are doing medically in testing to make you feel good enough to say we're good to go to play?
Well, it's just a matter of, the continued education and the masking, and there's going to be things different from different protocols. The helmets are going to have face shields all the way through. So, our understanding and talking to the medical experts and scientists is the virus is spread by, saliva, your spit. So what we're trying to do, and you see it in practice, is wearing the mask, but their face shields is what it's going to be called on the helmets. You've seen the visors before. Okay. Now it's the complete face shield. So if a student athlete is talking, spitting, whatever, it's hitting that mask and not going into the face of somebody else. So, we've taken all those protocols. We've taken the testing, which we'll continue to test on a weekly basis, and we'll test a minimum of 72 hours before the contest and work through that. We're hoping also, Tony, that as we get closer, that there's the antigen test, which is a quicker test than the PCR tests with some nasal swabs and so on. So hopefully that test becomes more reliable as we get closer to the season, not only in football for our fall sports, to be able to have the antigen test that becomes more reliable, that we can use that on a daily basis if we need to.
That would be so nice, wouldn't it? I mean, wouldn't that be such a confidence builder for everyone involved if you had that ability to do that?
It really is. And, again, we continue, talking not only within the league with our medical experts, but, as part of the football oversight, I have access to the NCAA medical experts as well. And, they feel that's coming. It's just not, and the test is out there now, but the reliability they don't feel is in the upper 70, low 80% range, and that reliability needs to be more in the low 90s to mid 90s to feel comfortable with. So I think it's going to get there. It's just, again, a matter of time and being patient.
You officially made the announcement this week that the Florida State game was not going to be played, which is a massive disappointment. Folks had already bought tickets for that game. What should fans know in regard to policies as far as refunds go for tickets?
Well, they need to contact the Mountaineer ticket office, and that's either through email or by phone, and they can do that. And I believe earlier this week there was information that was sent out to be able to inform our fans about what the refund process would be and how to do that. So, I think there's a graphic on the site now talking about the 1-800 number or WVU game email that you can send to. So, we worked hard in understanding that this was going to be very fluid, and given the opportunity for those fans, if this game was canceled, to have the opportunity to get a refund, as we did with some of our spring sports months ago. So this wouldn't be any different.
The Mountaineer Athletic Club is the fundraising arm for the university. I mean, you've got various flows that come in, conference monies, TV monies, radio monies, and things like that. The pressure, I would imagine, on the Mountaineer Athletic Club right now is tremendous. What are your walking orders to the folks there, and what do fans need to know about what the Mountaineer Athletic Club is going through?
Well, just how much we depend on, our model, Tony, is really placed upon the revenues, as you talked about, is the revenues through, our TV contracts with the Big 12, our ticket sales, our sponsorship agreements. Those are the major, arteries that go into our budgets and in the revenue standpoint. And if, we're playing football, we have the revenue from the Big 12, coming in. Depending on what happens with fans, we know that's going to be reduced. So, right now, we're down approximately, 8,000 tickets. So, you're looking millions of dollars down. Just, we talked about the 18,000 tickets that we've sold. But if you have to reduce that, what does that mean to the department? The revenues we've gone through an exercise just to say, just fixed cost. What does it cost to run the department just on fixed costs that we don't have any say-so over? It's about $60 million. Our budget's about $93 million. So when you talk about scholarships, contracted employees, the utilities to run, the different facilities, all that, that's what adds up. So the donations to the MAC, are a vital part of our operational expenses to be able to do that. And we don't take our fan base lightly in what we do and the support that they give us. And now more than ever, those dollars are needed to help continue to sponsor our programs and move forward.
There are so many questions that don't have answers yet, so I'm going to throw another one at you here that I'm sure you don't have an answer to, but at least we're starting to look ahead to it. The B word, basketball. Where and how do you think that conversation even starts to happen?
Well, I think you said it right there at the beginning of the question that there's so many questions that we don't even have answers to. Our focus has been within the conference as athletic directors is focusing on trying to get football. Our focus just ironically just started this week, started talking about basketball. What does that look like? And that's a little bit of a different animal here when we look at it, because now you're in an inside facility as opposed to being outdoors. So what does that mean? Again, we're going to have to cross that bridge from ticket sales and what that's going to look like. And we're doing some great things to the Coliseum right now of renovating the seats or removing the seats that are 50 years old and a new video board, all that. We're hoping to get people in there. But that starts in November. Obviously practice starts before that, but first competitions. But what that's going to look like, same thing, Tony. I'm not really sure what it's going to look like now. Our plans is to continue to progress, continue to focus on football, getting it started, keeping everybody healthy, and then the same thing with basketball is getting schools starting, getting classes in session, keeping everybody healthy, and then focusing on what's going to happen in November.
Since there wasn't a spring game, fans didn't have the opportunity to come to the football stadium back in April. And I think that those that do make it here or may have seen, totally different front has been applied and is in the process of being applied to Milan Puskar Stadium and the building itself. Where are you at as far as construction goes? Weather's been really good. I would imagine right on schedule or maybe a teeny bit ahead?
Well, depends how you look at it. From a lot of parts we were ahead, but then some parts we're getting behind just because of getting the product that we need because of the virus or pandemic going on. So, March Weston's been great as a construction crew and having their guys on base, and we're at a place right now where we need to be. With some of the finishes, we're probably a week or two behind. But those things that from the outside aren't going to be noticed. It's more things that we're going into the locker room, doors, different things like that, the finishing work. But we're really proud of the facility. We'll have to take a tour here in a couple of weeks and take a look at it. But it is just changing the face of the Puskar Center and what that's going to look like. Our timeline for the whole project to be completed would be next spring, right. April, May of next year, and have it totally completed. Scoreboard is going to be a massive change. That's still on schedule? It's still on schedule. It's as you've seen the structure going up. We've done some showings of that, and they're working around the clock. I think we had a welder up there at midnight. You could see the sparks flying. But yeah, that's on schedule. We hope to have that up and running by the end of August is the timeline for that. What's your overall gut telling you about what we're about to get into? Tony, I've been on such a roller coaster ride since March. You asked me today, I feel a little bit more optimistic than I did yesterday. There's just a lot of days ahead of us, what that's going to mean to us, and the virus and what that continues to look like. I think it'll tell us a lot when we start practicing in helmets and pads and see what it looks like. It's also another tell-alls when the students return back to campus, what that's going to look like, and from the spread of the potential virus. There's a lot of safety protocols that's in place, but we can't control everything. So it's just taking it day by day and understanding that there could be bumps in the road. And we continue to tell people within our staff and even our student athletes, this is a very fluid situation, and there's going to be highs and lows, and we just kind of have to try to stay in the middle ground and be hopeful that we can continue playing sports come fall. And one final thought, if you would, because as part of the oversight committee and then within the league, as Bob Bowlesby, the commissioner, has said, there's going to be times when you're going to pop an infection.
have you determined what a number is for a game to be canceled? Have you reached that, hey, when it gets to this point, no one's playing?
Yeah, we haven't. We came up with a recommendation, and we actually asked the football coaches to take a look at it. As administrators, we can come up with a number, but does that make sense? So, there's a lot of different options out there. So what we initially looked at to say, if 25% of your scholarship athletes out of 85 are impacted because of the virus and they can't play, then that would be a time that we would postpone a game. The coaches took a hold of this last week. They've had a couple scheduled meetings. They haven't given us options back, but they're looking at, depending upon the number of squad. In a normal game, you play anywhere from 55 to 60 student athletes. So I think they're focusing on that number as opposed to the number of scholarship athletes and say, what percentage of those athletes, if they can't play, is that 20%? And you look at that, and we would have to, again, from the conference office standpoint, is send in our medical results. We would test on Wednesday, leave for away game, you leave on Friday. We want to make this as transparent from institution to institution. So they're looking at that to come and say, what in turn makes a game become canceled? Is it 20% of your 60 that normally play, what that number looks like? So, we have a couple weeks to make that decision, but I think it's going to be in that neighborhood somewhere around that.
Amazing times.
Very
Absolutely amazing. Shane, we really appreciate the time.
Well, thank you, Tony. Let's go Mountaineers.
All right. WVU's Athletic Director Shane Lyons, thanks for being with us. Conversation with Shane Lyons brought to us by Encova Insurance, encircling you with coverage. Thanks for being with us.